My Story by Alfred Heaton. I was born in Fulham, London, 1919. I volunteered for the Navy in 1938, but was not called up until January 1939. I was in Gibraltar when the war was declared on the 3rd of September. We were on our way to join the Mediterranean Fleet. I remember the date, as this is also my brother Dick's birthday. The first few months of the Med were reasonably quiet, but U-boats were playing havoc with our convoys, so we were brought home to the western approaches. This took in Liverpool, Greenock and Scapa Flow. We sailed into James Watt Dock in December 1939. I saw the old Queen Elizabeth I sail past the James Watt Dock on her maiden and secret voyage to the Americas. My friend and I went ashore to post letters to our family. This was before censorship came in place. Everything was blacked out, no street lights, no lights in shop windows, all houses had blackout curtains. All we could see were shadowy figures approaching and disappearing in the darkness. On this occasion, 2 figures came out of the darkness, 2 girls. We asked where the nearest pillbox was. We were nearly on top of it and didn't see it. We said our thank you and went on our way. After posting our letters, we went into a club called the Tock H. This was a tea room above Burton's in Hamilton Street, Greenock. After we left the Tock H, we went into the Salvation Army for another cup of tea. We didn't go into pubs in those days. On our way back to the boat, we bumped into the 2 girls again, Mary and Sissy. They were on their way home. As there was no transport, we offered to walk them home, so it was a long walk from Greenock to Cloonbray in Port Glasgow, where they lived. We saw them a few times afterwards, but for some reason my girl Mary didn't turn up one day. Having liked her company, I decided to go to the address she gave me. It was 186 Cloonbray. When I got to the door of the top flat, the person who answered the door was not Mary. It was Mrs. Brooks, a blind lady. Being English and her, Mr. Brooks, being Scottish, it took a few minutes for them to understand what a sailor was doing at their door. I said I was looking for Mary Carroll, and by luck they knew who it was. Her address was 96 Cloonbray. I didn't like to go to her door as her dad was a strict Irishman, and this may have been the reason she did not give me her correct address. I went back on board ship and wrote to her. We sailed out to Scapa Flow the following day, so for the next few months we wrote to each other. I managed to get leave a few months later and came down and stayed with Mary's sister and her friends, the other girl, Sissy's mother. Sissy's mother was a mother figure to Mary, as her mother was no longer with us. My courtship was by letter. I even proposed by letter, and as Sissy's mother gave her approval, Mary accepted my proposal. I had to collect my marriage certificate from a shop in Church Street, being used as the registry office. While waiting in Church Street for the office to open, a lady, Mrs. Agnew, living in a flat overlooking the office, took pity on me and called me up to her flat. She gave me a cup of tea, sat me at her window till the shop opened. When I left, she gave me a keepsake, a whisky thimble measure. This is where you get the saying, just a thimbleful. I'll still have this as a keepsake. The day before we got married, we still did not have a wedding ring, and thought that we would have to borrow one, as so many of those getting married in the war had to. There was a big shortage at that time. I was lucky, and heard through the grapevine that a jewellers in Paisley had some under-the-counter 9-carat gold rings, so on the off chance that he would sell me one, I went with a cotton ring size round my finger. I got there just before closing time. I think he took pity on me because I was getting married the next day and sold me one. We got married on the 15th of August 1942 in St John's Church, Port Glasgow. Within a few weeks of getting married, I was shipped out to North Africa, Italy, Egypt, India and Burma. My wife gave birth to our first son, and it was 6 months before I heard he was born, due to the mail getting through to us. Whilst I was abroad, a gypsy had come to my wife's door selling clothes pegs. She told my wife a redhead would come between us, and she would wear 2 wedding rings. When my son was born, he had red hair. My wife was really very upset and thought that I would not be coming home. So it was with great relief when 3 years later I came home in time for the street celebrations for Fiji Day, 15th of August, 1945. My son did not know me. To him, his granddad was his dad. I had a lot of catching up to do. This is when we decided I would become a Portonian. My wife eventually lost her ring. I, of course, bought her a new one. Many years later, in an old wooden bed that has seen many moves and changes, the first ring was found, wedged in the bottom of one of the spiral springs as the bed was being dismantled for a bonfire. This ring is now a keepsake. My wife and I had a very happy marriage. We were married for 50 years before she passed away. I now pass my days being a bingo caller in a club and spend 3 days a week in very pleasant company studying computing at Clune Park Resource Centre. I enjoy computing, and with so much to learn, it always gives me an excuse to come back for more classes.